Jackson pushed open the door, its chimes soft, barely registering in the din of clinking silverware and muted conversation. He wore a simple tee, weathered jeans, and a faded cap pulled low enough to shield his eyes from recognition. No one looked up. He might as well have been a ghost. At the host stand, Tanner glanced up from his phone, his gaze barely flickering with interest. "Do you have a reservation?" he asked, voice flat, indifferent. Jackson pointed to the vacant VIP table near the window, the one he used to call his own. "It's open, isn't it?" Tanner's lips curled into a knowing smirk. Reserved. He didn't bother checking the book. Didn't even pretend. Behind Jackson, a couple strolled in. Designer bags, perfume loud as their laughter. Tanner's demeanor shifted instantly, posture straightening, smile wide. "Right this way," he beamed, leading them directly to the table Jackson had pointed to. Jackson didn't move. He stood still, absorbing the moment in silence. "I'll take a Tomahawk, medium rare," he said, voice calm but grounded. Tanner paused, then gave a soft laugh. "That's a big steak, sir. You sure you know how to chew it?" Jackson didn't respond. His eyes didn't leave the table, the same one where, years ago, a brass plate had once gleamed with his name. Now, it was just another seat he was unwelcome in. Suddenly, in his mind, the sizzle of a pan cut through the haze. The memory pulled him backward, to a cramped, cluttered kitchen, where a younger version of himself moved with raw urgency. His apron sagged, his grip on the knife awkward. He sliced too thin, the ribeye curled and charred, oversalted, dry, but he plated it anyway. No one was watching, no one ever had. He tasted it. It was terrible, but he didn't spit it out. He reached for another cut, adjusted the flame. No one told him what was wrong. There were no mentors, no instructions, just grit, heat, and blind faith in his instincts. That night, he curled beside the oven, a rolled towel for a pillow. Burn marks decorated his forearms like battle wounds. Outside, the city slept. Inside, a man with nothing began building something worth waking up for. He remembered the notebook. Its cover was worn, corners frayed, grease-soaked pages filled with every failure, every overcooked steak, every miscalculated rub. He logged everything. 5 years, no shortcuts. He learned how long each side needed, how fat rendered best with rest, how bones cradled heat. Not from textbooks, but from pain, from doing it wrong. His father never taught him to cook, but at the butcher's block, he taught him something deeper. "Your eyes lie," the old man had said, "but your hands won't." Jackson learned to feel. Every ounce of meat, every flick of heat, every whisper of muscle fiber as it met the blade. Perfection wasn't the goal. Memory was. He wasn't crafting meals. He was carving moments. But memory faded fast. The boardroom was silent. The red line on the quarterly report slid downward like a wound bleeding out. Sales, ratings, retention, all falling. Flagship location, his first, his legacy, ranked in the bottom 3. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Guests say the steak feels rushed, cold, unloved. One partner offered cautiously. Another added, "They said it used to taste like someone cared." Jackson said nothing. His eyes stayed on the numbers. The damage. He whispered, almost to himself, "The dish with my name on it. It's driving them out." He didn't ask what went wrong. He asked something worse. What if it's already too late? He stood in front of the mirror. The sink was full of stubble, each stroke of the razor cutting more than hair. It carved distance between the man he had become and the man he once was. No watch, no tailored suit, just an old windbreaker and a folded notepad. He left the office. No emails, no warnings, just silence. He needed to see it for himself, not through filtered reports or carefully chosen words, but through the eyes of someone unrecognized, a stranger walking into his own legacy. If it's broken, he thought, then I want to feel where it hurts. In the back kitchen, Elias steadied his hand. The tomahawk rested before him, a challenge in raw form. One clean cut. He adjusted the angle slightly, sliced. Precision, not speed, not flair, just care. Behind him, Ken barked, "You slicing for a museum. They're gonna eat it, not admire it." Elias didn't reply. He wiped the blade, aligned the ribbon. Focused. Another cook chuckled. "Still trying to impress ghosts, huh?" Elias heard it, didn't react. He turned the steak slightly, catching light on the perfect grain. From his corner, Jackson saw it all. Through the small window into the kitchen, he caught the glow of the grill lighting half of Elias's face. Not dramatic, just real. No showmanship, just a kid doing the work, quietly perfecting a cut no one else would notice. And in that moment, Jackson didn't see Elias, he saw himself. Same fire, same silence, same hunger to get it right. Jackson exhaled. For the first time that day, his jaw unclenched. Maybe someone still cared. The plate landed in front of him. No fanfare, no eye contact, just steak on porcelain. Jackson cut into it. The edges were burned, the center gray, the texture wrong. He took a bite, chewed once, twice, dry, lifeless. He set the knife down gently, folded the napkin. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. No one came to check. No one asked how it was. They walked past him as if he didn't exist. It wasn't just the steak. It was the message behind it. No one had cared enough to get it right. Near the front, laughter echoed. A young couple arrived, their joy tangible. A host greeted them immediately, smiling wide. Jackson sat still, silent, and for the first time, he truly understood what had been lost. Menus were distributed with practiced ease. Water poured, wine suggested with tailored charm. Their server leaned in, engaging and polished, every move designed to please. Across the room, Jackson sat alone. His empty glass hadn't been touched since he arrived. No one checked in, no refills, no glances. Behind the bar, Ken laughed loudly, raising his drink in toast with Tanner, both oblivious to the emptiness at Jackson's table. Jackson remained motionless. His hands were folded, his gaze calm but sharp. He observed the couple again. Their bread basket was steaming. Their steaks arrived seared perfectly rare. Even their napkins were folded differently. He looked down at his own plate. Half-eaten, going cold, forgotten. A quiet question formed in his mind. Is this just coincidence or a pattern? He rose without a word, slipping toward the back hallway. As he passed the restrooms, something caught his attention. A door, slightly ajar, leaking a breath of frigid air. No signage, just silence. He pushed it open. Freezer room. Rows of meat sealed in plastic, but disorganized. No labels, no rotation. Some cuts showed frostbite, others leaked pinkish liquid. A shelf leaned under the weight of a ripped box, bone ends turning gray. The metal floor shimmered not with polish, but with condensation and a faint, steady drip. Jackson stepped in. He didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone and took silent photos. No flash, no sound. When he shut the door behind him, his expression didn't change. But something inside him had. This wasn't a one-time slip. This was decay, disguised as business as usual. Back in the kitchen, Ken's voice barked over the rhythm of clattering pans. "Sauce from scratch? Waste of time. Use the canned." Elias paused mid-motion, spatula raised. The fresh sauce matters. It's what gives the tomahawk its depth. Ken slammed a pot onto the stove. It's a steak, not a goddamn tasting menu. Speed matters more than flavor. Elias didn't reply. He lowered his eyes. But in his silence was resistance. Across the station, a sous chef traded glances with another. Everyone knew the rule. Quality could bend. Profit never would. Elias wiped sweat from his brow. His passion didn't speak with words. It pulsed quietly, like a small fire refusing to go out. At a corner table, Belle, a well-known food critic, took a bite of the tomahawk. Her smile faded. Overcooked. Dry. She raised a hand, summoned a server. "Is this how you serve your signature dish?" The server didn't even meet her eyes. "Who are you again?" Belle's voice sharpened. "I'm someone who holds restaurants accountable." The server shrugged, bored. "We're slammed. If you don't like it, you can leave." Her expression tightened. The clash wasn't just over meat. It was between reputation and disregard. Jackson, watching quietly, felt something flare in his chest. Not frustration, betrayal. Dinner rush intensified, orders flew. Ken barked again. "Elias!" Out front, enough with the drama. Elias froze. He looked toward Jackson, who sat still, eyes locked on the scene. No words, no nod of support. Elias set down his tools and stepped away. The buzz continued, but tension spread like smoke. Some chefs avoided eye contact, some whispered, "Too slow, drama queen, thinks he's special." Jackson didn't look away. He saw the weight Elias carried, the pressure to fold, to kill passion for procedure. Quiet anger burned under his skin. He picked up his fork. Another bite, the same dull taste. But this time, he swallowed not just meat, but a decision. Somewhere in that act, something shifted. At another table, an old man waited patiently, water glass dry, menu untouched. Minutes passed, no service, no smile. He rose slowly, folded his napkin, walked out in silence. Jackson watched, not with outrage, with sorrow, the kind that understood what it meant to be unseen. Elias returned to the line, unnoticed. Another plate, another steak. The edges were charred, cut uneven. But without hesitation, Elias fixed what he could. He repositioned the slices, checked the heat with his fingertips, drizzled sauce by instinct, not recipe. Adjusted garnish until it sat just right. No applause, no nods, just craftsmanship in the shadows. Jackson stood nearby, observing. Not as a boss, as a man remembering. Before walking off shift, Elias tucked a note beneath a stack of clean plates. Jackson's eye caught the movement. He waited, then retrieved it. He unfolded it. A line, handwritten. "Tomahawk is art. If I do it wrong, I'd rather not do it at all." It landed with more weight than a report ever could. Jackson realized then, Elias wasn't just an employee. He was the soul still beating inside a fading body. Quiet, loyal, fierce. Jackson folded the note carefully and slipped it into his wallet. He turned toward the grill. The flames reflected in his eyes, casting a glow over tiled walls. Something within him settled. Less rage, more resolve. This was no longer about food. It was about values. Back at his table, Jackson sat down again. Across the room, Ken and Tanner clinked glasses. Loud, careless. "End of the month. Cut Elias's pay," Ken said. "Too slow, too soft." Tanner snorted. "No room for artists." Their laughter rang like a verdict. Jackson's jaw clenched. This wasn't just about one man or one mistake. It was systemic, ruthless, soulless. Elias quietly approached the old man's former table. He placed a plate, arranged with care, bowed his head gently. The new guest nodded, thankful. Elias lifted the fork, aligned the napkin, wiped the blade of the knife. No applause, no eyes. But his movements were precise, reverent. He wasn't working for praise. He was honoring something deeper. And Jackson knew in that moment he wasn't alone in wanting something more. He had just found his reason to fight. No one else noticed, but in that small act of quiet dignity, Elias bore the burden of something far heavier than meat on a plate. He wasn't just cooking. He was preserving a legacy. In a kitchen swept up in speed and apathy, he remained a lone defender of craftsmanship, of purpose, of soul. From across the room, Jackson watched. Still. Silent. His eyes followed Elias's every movement. "He's doing what I used to do," he whispered to himself. It wasn't just nostalgia that gripped him. It was recognition. The fire Elias carried was the same one that once burned in Jackson's own hands, back when sweat and grit built dreams, not spreadsheets. The room kept buzzing, plates clanged, orders shouted. But Jackson's thoughts spiraled back to nights alone in fluorescent-lit kitchens, when belief in the work was the only thing that kept him going. Elias wasn't just surviving, he was resisting. Another customer rose from their table abruptly, frustration written across their face. They grabbed their coat and walked out without a single glance back. No one tried to stop them, not a server, not a manager. Jackson's jaw tightened. Elias looked up briefly. Uncertainty flared in his eyes. Regret, maybe. But then he turned back to his station. The rhythm of his knife resumed, steady, precise. The restaurant thrived in noise, but beneath the clatter was a pattern of quiet collapse. Jackson could feel it, the erosion of trust, the thinning thread of care. It wasn't a singular failure. It was a system unraveling. He rose, walked slowly toward the staff area. From the open office, Ken's voice drifted out, laced with smug satisfaction. "2 high-paid cuts gone this month," he said. "Clean house." He chuckled, casual, like letting people go was just another line item. Jackson stopped at the door. He didn't say a word, but his presence altered the temperature. Ken noticed. His smile faltered. But the damage was already done. Jackson had seen it, the heart of what the restaurant had become. Hollow, mechanical, profit over people. Elias was on his knees, scrubbing a corner of the kitchen floor. Then Tanner sauntered by and flicked water toward his shoes. "Clean this up," Tanner sneered. "Can't be bothered, huh?" Elias didn't look up. His jaw set. His shoulders stiffened. He said nothing. He just reached for the mop, wiping the spill with careful strokes, each one a refusal to break. Jackson watched from a distance, his hands curled into fists. This wasn't about water. This was humiliation in disguise. Without a word, he stepped closer. Tanner turned mid-laugh and froze. Jackson's stare cut through the air. Silence swallowed the space. Tanner backed away, retreating down the corridor. Jackson didn't speak. He didn't have to. The message was clear. Someone was watching, and the game was changing. Later, Elias placed his palm just above the grill, eyes closed, lips barely parted as he counted in silence. A personal ritual. Jackson watched in awe. There were no gadgets, no probes, just experience and intuition. Elias's hand lifted. A perfect read. Jackson smiled, small but full. This was mastery, the kind you couldn't fake, the kind born from obsession, pain, and love. Elias didn't need to speak. The flame did that for him. Ken reappeared in the doorway. "Elias," he barked. "Come here." Inside the office, Ken leaned in close. "You think you're an artist? This isn't a gallery. It's a kitchen. I need workers, not poets." Elias said nothing. He stared at the floor. But inside, his fists clenched, and his silence screamed. This wasn't a correction. It was an ultimatum. Give up the art or give up the job. Back in the dining area, Jackson sat down again, pulled out his phone. His fingers hovered, then typed, "Coming back tomorrow." No disguise. Real name. Real title. He stared at the words, read them twice, then locked the screen. His decision was made. This wasn't just a visit anymore. It was war. Across the kitchen, Elias placed his knife back onto the rack, inch by inch, perfectly aligned. Every motion exact. Every action a form of defiance. Jackson stood, walking toward the exit. Before leaving, he turned back, a single nod. Elias froze. It wasn't a compliment. It wasn't encouragement. It was recognition. "I see you. I know what you're fighting for." And in that moment, something shifted in Elias. Not relief, hope, quiet, real. The door clicked behind Jackson. The Texas sun dipped low, casting shadows over the street. He walked slowly, his silhouette stretching out ahead. The buzz of the city faded behind him. What lay ahead was unknown, but the reckoning had begun. The screen faded to black. White words appeared. Tomorrow, they will know. The promise hung heavy. And then the door opened again. This time, Jackson didn't walk in as a ghost. He walked in like the storm. Tailored gray suit, neat hair, polished shoes. His name tag, CEO. Tanner froze. The smirk dissolved from his lips. Ken's expression drained of color. The kitchen paused. Elias looked up, but didn't flinch. He already knew. Jackson didn't need to raise his voice. His presence alone was enough. "I wasn't a customer yesterday," he said, voice calm. The room stilled. "I'm the man who made every cut of meat in this place." No threats, no emotion, just truth. It fell like thunder. Every pair of eyes locked on him. They couldn't deny it. The founder stood before them, unseen for too long. The shame filled the silence. Then Jackson turned to Elias. "You," he said, "are the only one who truly understands this dish." And with that one sentence, everything began to shift. Jackson stepped forward, the hum of the room fading beneath the weight of what he was about to say. From the inside pocket of his suit, he pulled out a small, polished badge. He held it gently, almost reverently, before turning to Elias. "Starting today," Jackson said, his voice firm but filled with warmth, "you carry a new title." He handed Elias the badge. It read, Culinary Soulkeeper. Elias stared at it, eyes wide, disbelief and pride swirling within him. This wasn't just a title. It was a promise, a mission, a beacon to protect, not only the flavor, but the heart of the kitchen. Jackson allowed the silence to stretch, letting the room feel the gravity of that moment. Elias gave a small nod. No words, just a straightened spine, a steady breath, and a man ready to carry a sacred legacy. Then Jackson turned to Ken, calm, icy. "You didn't just fire a dish," he said, voice low but cutting. "You fired a culture." Ken opened his mouth, then closed it. No comeback, just avoidance. Jackson stepped closer, the quiet sharper than any shout. "And for that, I'm firing you." No protest, no drama, just the sudden, echoing finality of truth. Ken nodded once. The fight was already gone. Elias accepted the badge, his hands trembling slightly. His eyes glistened, red-rimmed but unbroken. He pinned the badge to his apron, where it caught the light just so. Then, with no fanfare, he turned back to the kitchen, knife in hand, purpose in his step, a leader not by name, but by presence. The energy shifted, not louder, not faster, just fuller. Chefs stood straighter, knives moved smoother, every station glowed with a new sense of clarity. Plates gleamed, garnishes landed perfectly, tables were cleaned with reverence, napkins folded just right. The laughter of guests bubbled up like music. The restaurant felt alive again, not with sound, but with soul. In the center of it all, Elias worked with silent command. He lifted the tomahawk, his knife a maestro's baton. Each cut flowed with rhythm and intent. Juices gleamed along clean marbling. The grain surrendered perfectly beneath the blade. At a nearby table, an elderly guest watched. He nodded once, soft smile on his lips. "This is it," he murmured. Elias didn't look up. He didn't need to. His focus stayed on the meat, the moment, the craft. The kitchen wasn't just operational. It was alive, a theater of skill, of care. And Jackson sat quietly in his corner booth, journal open, pen in hand. He wrote slowly, with reflection, "I once taught others how to hold a knife. Now someone reminds me how to hold on to fire." Through the kitchen window, He watched Elias, steady, graceful, relentless. The past and present folded into one, a cycle of teaching, of trusting, of passing down what matters. Jackson smiled faintly. This wasn't an ending. This was a new beginning. Outside, the sky dimmed. Inside, the light grew. Elias leaned toward a new cook, a hand on the shoulder. Words whispered, barely heard above the sizzle and steam. No praise, no spotlight, just mentorship. Jackson stood outside the glass watching, hands clasped, a softness in his eyes. The fire was being passed on. Quietly, intentionally. No speeches, no announcements. Just a promise, alive and breathing. This was the real victory. Because sometimes the people who inspire us most aren't the loudest. They're the ones who never stopped caring, who kept going even when no one saw. And if you've ever known someone like that, someone who kept the flame alive when the world forgot how to light it, then you know the kind of legacy that never fades. Passion isn't about fame, it's about heart. And heart, passed down, becomes something more. It becomes immortal.